It was 2:17 in the morning. My phone buzzed twice on the nightstand, screen lighting up the ceiling like a cheap motel sign. I squinted against the glow, heart already half racing, because nothing good ever starts with a call at that hour, especially not from Jake. Jake and I had been tight once, like college road trip tight, sat in the back of a police cruiser together tight. The kind of friends who didn't just know each other's birthdays, but knew the story behind every scar, every failed exam, every family fight that got too loud. But somewhere along the line, maybe a year ago, maybe more, he'd started slipping. Texts turned into one-word replies. Plans were made and broken. I'd get the usual, "Can't today, bro. Work's been brutal." Or, "Let's catch up soon," which we both knew was a social placeholder. Soon became code for never. At first, I gave him space. People drift. Life gets busy. Hell, I've done it too. But after 6 months of trying, suggesting beers after work, checking in when I saw something that reminded me of him, even just sending a meme or two, I stopped. There's only so many times you can reach out before it feels like begging. The last time we saw each other in person was at a mutual friend's barbecue in March. It was weird. We made small talk, like acquaintances, even though we used to be brothers. I remember how he laughed at something someone else said, this forced, over-the-top cackle. And I knew in that moment the guy I used to know wasn't fully behind his eyes anymore. So that night, or morning, when his name flashed on my phone, a part of me wanted to let it ring. Just press the side button and roll over. But the other part, the older part, the one that still remembered helping him move out of his ex's place at midnight with a six-pack and a flashlight, picked up. "Jake?" His voice came through rough, hollow. "Hey man, you awake?" I rubbed my face. "I am now." There was silence on the line, just his breathing, shaky. "You okay?" Another pause. Can you come get me?" I sat up. "Where are you?" "I'm at the Hollow. They kicked me out. My car's here, but I shouldn't drive." The Hollow was a dingy bar on the edge of the town, known for sticky floors, cheap whiskey, and patrons who didn't know when to stop. I'd driven past it 100 times, but hadn't stepped foot inside since I was 25. "Jake, what happened?" He didn't answer directly. I didn't know who else to call. That line hit harder than I wanted it to. "I'll be there in 15, I said, already pulling jeans over my boxers. The streets were empty, just flickering traffic lights and the occasional raccoon darting across pavement. I drove in silence, the kind that makes your own thoughts echo louder. I wasn't angry, not yet, but I was something. When I pulled into the Hollow's gravel lot, Jake was sitting on the curb, head between his knees, one shoe off. His hoodie was soaked, either from rain or spilled beer, hard to tell. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically. He still had that broad-shouldered frame, but like he'd deflated inside. He didn't get up right away, just lifted his head slowly, eyes red. "You came, Matham," he said, like he genuinely wasn't sure I would. "Yeah, let's get you home." The drive back was quiet. He kept opening his mouth like he was about to say something, then clamping it shut again. I didn't push. I figured whatever broke him enough to call me would eventually come spilling out. It wasn't until we were pulling into his apartment complex that he said it. "She left." I glanced at him. "Emma?" He nodded. "Took her stuff last week. Didn't say goodbye. Just gone." That explained a lot. Emma was the one who'd pulled him together after his last breakdown. After his job let him go for restructuring, and he spent 3 months playing Call of Duty in the dark. She was good for him. Or maybe just good to him. "I'm sorry, man." He exhaled sharply through his nose. "Nah, you warned me." I didn't say anything. I had warned him. Not about her, but about himself. About how he shuts down, shuts people out, about how he thinks not talking about stuff makes it go away. We got out of the car. He swayed slightly on his feet, then steadied himself. "You coming up?" he asked. I hesitated. It was late. I had work in the morning, but something in his voice, that thread of desperation, tugged at me. "Yeah," I said, "for a bit." His apartment was a mess. Not just cluttered, wrecked. Clothes everywhere. Dishes in the sink, couch cushions on the floor like there'd been a struggle. A cracked picture frame face down on the coffee table. The air smelled like stale beer and sadness. He noticed me looking and gave a weak shrug. "Been like this a while." We sat. Or I did. He sort of collapsed onto the other end of the couch. "She said I don't let people in," he mumbled. "Said I treat everyone like they're temporary." I let that sit. "She's not wrong," I said finally. Jake flinched like I'd smacked him, but then he nodded. "I've been a shitty friend." I didn't argue. No point. "Why'd you come tonight?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Because you called," I said. "And I still remember the version of you that would have done the same." He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw something behind the bloodshot eyes. Shame. Regret. Maybe even gratitude. "Thanks, man." I nodded. "Don't mention it." And then, for the first time in a long while, the silence between us felt like something solid. Not absence, but space. Like maybe, just maybe, we could build something again. His living room window faced the sunrise, a slow bleed of orange over the rooftops. But inside, it smelled like old takeout and spilled beer. Light hit the crumpled hoodie Jake had used as a pillow on the floor, and for a second, the mess looked almost peaceful. Almost. I hadn't planned to sleep over, but sometime around 4, I passed out on the recliner. No blanket, just my jacket balled under my head and the low hum of the fridge filling the dark. Jake was still out cold when I woke, mouth half open, one arm draped over his eyes. The coffee table had an empty bottle of Jameson and a crusty slice of pizza that might have been from Tuesday, or earlier. I didn't ask. I stretched, back cracking, and made my way to the kitchen. Opening the fridge was like discovering a crime scene. 3 beers, 2 takeout containers with no visible expiration date, and a half-full bottle of mustard. No eggs, no milk, just air and leftovers of a life stalled mid-motion. I filled a glass with water, then added another, left one on the counter by the sink. Jake stirred as I sat back down. "What time is it?" he croaked. "Just past 7. He rubbed his face like the light offended him. "You stayed. You were hammered. You'd have passed out in the parking lot." He grunted. "I didn't think you would. I didn't think you'd call." He sat up slowly, head in his hands. "I know I've been distant." That was putting it mildly. Ghosting someone for half a year isn't just distant. It's a quiet goodbye you never say out loud, but I kept that to myself. "Yeah," I said, "you were." "I thought I was doing you a favor." I raised an eyebrow. "By disappearing?" Jake gave a hollow laugh. "By not dragging you into my mess." There it was, the martyr act. The idea that pushing people away is somehow noble. I'd heard it before, from him, from others, and it always felt like an excuse to avoid vulnerability. "You don't get to make that call for other people," I said quietly. "That's not protection. That's control." He looked like I'd socked him, but he didn't argue. We sat there for a while. No music, no TV, just sunlight slowly crawling across the carpet, and 2 friends who used to be something better than strangers. "I was jealous," he said suddenly. I blinked. "Of what?" "You. Your life. Your stability. You always have your shit together." That made me laugh, and not kindly. Jake, I rent a one-bedroom apartment above a laundromat and microwave frozen burritos for dinner. Yeah, but you show up. You're steady. People rely on you. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just said, you could be that too. He shook his head. I don't think I'm wired that way. Then get rewired. He laughed again, but this time there was something sad in it. It's not that easy. No, it's not. But it's not impossible either. He stood, wobbling slightly, and picked up the water glass I'd left for him. Tastes like guilt, he muttered, then downed it. Hydration is accountability, I said. It's science. He smirked, and for a second, I saw a flicker of the old Jake, the one who used to play pickup basketball on Sundays and rant about bad sequels, and once drove 6 hours just to surprise me on my birthday. That guy was still in there somewhere. Buried maybe, but alive. He stretched. I should shower. Definitely. You smell like a bar mat. As he headed toward the bathroom, I caught a glimpse of his bedroom. Clothes piled everywhere, a mattress without sheets, a laptop blinking with unopened notifications. The man was drowning in plain sight. While he was in the shower, I cleaned a little. Not much, just cleared the bottles, tossed the pizza box, wiped down the counter. I wasn't trying to fix him, just trying to remind him that some things could be clean again. He came out in a towel, hair wet, face fresher. You didn't have to do that, he said, nodding at the sink. I didn't, I replied, but I did. He nodded. Didn't argue. That felt like growth. I should get going, I said, checking my phone. 2 missed calls from work. 1 text from my manager asking if I'd be late. Jake looked down. Yeah, right. I'll check in later. He hesitated. You don't have to. I want to. He nodded again, slower this time. Okay. I made it to the door, hand on the knob, when he said, Do you think we can be friends again, like before? I turned. Not like before. His face fell. But maybe better, I added. That earned a faint smile. Driving to work, I kept thinking about how quickly things can break, and how much longer it takes to rebuild them. Jake had burned some bridges, yeah, but the thing about bridges is, if the foundation's still there, you can lay new boards, 1 step at a time. And despite the mess, despite the silence, despite the months of feeling discarded, I still wanted to see if we could cross it again. The coffee mug was too hot, but I held it anyway. Let the heat soak into my palms while the radio muttered something forgettable in the background. It had been 3 days since Jake called me at 2 a.m., and I still couldn't decide if I was holding on to something old or just scared to let it go. I hadn't heard from him since that morning. I'd texted once, just a simple "how's today?" and got no response. It wasn't like I expected a complete transformation overnight. 1 sobering ride home doesn't cure whatever storm he's been living under. But a reply, a sign he still wanted the connection, that felt like the minimum. I stared at the screen again. Still nothing. The heat from the mug had gone lukewarm. I set it down, phone in hand, thumb hovering. Hey, just checking in. Let me know if you're up for coffee or anything. I hit send, then turned off the screen and forced myself to get on with the day. That Saturday, I stopped by my mom's place to fix her leaky kitchen faucet, the usual weekend errand. As I lay under the sink, flashlight between my teeth, she asked, You talked to Jake lately? I grunted. A few days ago. She didn't push, but her silence was loud. She'd always liked Jake, called him the lost puppy with a good heart. The kind of boy you root for even after he tracks mud across the floor. He okay? She asked finally. Not really. She didn't say anything else, just handed me a wrench like it was a gesture of solidarity. Sunday afternoon, my phone buzzed. Jake. Hey, you around? I stared at the message, heart doing that stupid little skip. It's funny how even after all the letdowns, a message like that could still feel like hope. Yeah, want to meet? His reply came quick. Can I swing by? I almost said no, not out of spite, out of self-preservation, but I typed, sure, I'm home. 20 minutes later, he showed up. Clean shirt, jeans, a faint smell of soap. He still looked tired, but he stood straighter than before. I opened the door. Hey! Hey! We stood there a beat too long, like two guys who weren't sure if they were supposed to shake hands or pretend nothing happened. Come in. He stepped inside, glanced around like he was taking mental notes. Same furniture, same coffee table with water rings from the glass I never remembered to use a coaster with. We sat. I owe you an apology, he said, no warm-up. Yeah, I said. You do. He blinked. Wasn't expecting you to agree so fast. I've had time to think. He nodded slowly. Fair. Then, quieter. I screwed up. I pulled away. I flaked. I ghosted you. I didn't speak. I kept telling myself it was temporary, that I'd fix things when I had my shit together. But months went by, and the longer I stayed away, the harder it got to reach back out. I leaned forward. So what changed? Jake looked down at his hands. Emma leaving, that broke something. But calling you that night? That reminded me of something still working. I sat with that. I'm not good at this, he added. Friendship, being reliable. You used to be, I said. You were the guy who showed up at my door with soup when I had the flu and no groceries. He smiled faintly. That soup was expired. Still showed up. There was a beat of silence before I asked, So what now? He shrugged. I don't know. I'm trying. I nodded. Trying is good. Jake reached into his jacket and pulled out a crumpled envelope. I found this cleaning my room. It's dumb, but I kept it. I took it. It was a birthday card I gave him 3 years ago. Inside was a handwritten note about brothers from other mothers and a $25 Starbucks gift card. You kept this? Never used the card. I laughed. You idiot. He grinned. Figured it was more valuable as proof that someone once gave a damn. That one hit a little deeper than I expected. We talked for a while. Not about anything heavy. Just caught up. His job hunt. My new neighbor's obnoxiously loud dog. The guy who clipped my mirror in the grocery store lot. We let the normalcy settle in like dust after a storm. Eventually he stood. I should go. I nodded. Thanks for coming. He lingered by the door. You think we can be good again? Maybe, I said, but it'll take more than one visit. I know. He held out his hand. I took it. Firm grip. No theatrics. After he left, I sat back down and flipped through the old birthday card again. The handwriting was messy. The sentiment was cheesy. But it was a reminder. People can drift, lose themselves, wreck good things, and still, maybe, if they're willing, start to patch it together. Don't make a big deal out of it, Jake said, standing awkwardly next to the folded chairs. It's just a game. It wasn't. It never was with him. Not after everything. But I nodded anyway. It had been 2 weeks since he showed up at my apartment with the old birthday card. 2 weeks since we'd sat face to face and talked like friends again. Since then, we'd been testing the waters. Casual meetups, a few texts, nothing heavy, just touch and go. Like two guys learning how to talk again without stepping on the broken glass scattered between them. Then he invited me to his rec league basketball game. The same league we used to play in before everything fell apart. Before Emma. Before the silence. I didn't say yes right away. I told him I'd try to swing by. That's what people say when they're hedging. But Saturday rolled around, and I showed up. The gym smelled like varnished wood, sweat, and Gatorade, a mix of nostalgia and regret. Jake spotted me near the bleachers and gave a small nod. No wave, just a nod. That was enough. He was wearing his old number, 13, and for a second, I saw flashes of the guy I used to run drills with at 11 p.m. in college gyms, chasing some dream of staying in shape and pretending we weren't getting older. He played like someone trying to outrun guilt. Fast, aggressive, a little reckless, but when he passed the ball, it was clean. When he called plays, people listened. There was something solid under the rust. They lost by 4 points. After the game, Jake walked over, wiping sweat off his forehead with his sleeve. "Thanks for coming," he said, breath still ragged. "Thanks for not throwing elbows." He grinned. "You hungry?" We ended up at Manny's Diner, a place we'd haunted in our 20s. The booths were still covered in that same red vinyl. The waitress still called everyone "Hun" like it was part of the menu. Jake ordered pancakes. I got the breakfast burger. We ate in silence for a poussin, while, like old men with nothing left to prove. Then Jake said, "I saw Emma last week." I looked up. "Yeah?" She was at the bookstore on Main. I ducked behind a shelf. Classy. She didn't see me. "Did you want her to?" He paused. "I don't know. Maybe." I nodded, chewing. "That's honest." He took a sip of his coffee, eyes fixed on the sugar shaker like it held answers. "I wanted to say sorry," he said. "But not for the sake of getting her back, just sorry for being the version of me she had to leave." That was a line that stuck. The version of me she had to leave. It hit harder than I wanted it to. He stirred his coffee, even though he didn't add anything to it. "I used to think losing people was the worst thing," he said. "Turns out, making them walk away, that's worse." I didn't argue, because I'd been there. Not with a relationship, but with Jake. And I knew how it felt to be the one slowly frozen out, ghosted, forgotten. "You're working on it," I said. "That counts." He looked at me. "You think I'll ever be good at this? Like, actually being there for people? You're here now. Is that enough?" "No," I said plainly. "But it's a start." Later that night, I was home when my phone buzzed. "Jake, thanks for today." I stared at it for a second, then typed, "Anytime, just don't cancel next time." His reply came a few seconds later. "I won't." And for the first time in a long while, I believed him. The next week, he texted me first. Then the week after that, he helped me move a broken couch out to the curb. Didn't complain once. We even started a running joke. Every time he showed up on time for something, I'd say, "Jake 2.0, now with calendar sync." And he'd reply, "Beta version, may still crash occasionally." It wasn't perfect. He still flaked once or twice, still hesitated when things got personal, but he always followed up, always tried to repair it. That was the difference. It wasn't just the apology anymore. It was the action. And that's when I realized something. Friendship isn't about who's never messed up. It's about who's willing to pick up the pieces with you, even when they're the one who dropped them. The screwdriver sat on the passenger seat, scratched, blunt, a little rusted at the tip. I'd meant to return it to Jake a year ago, back when we were still close, back before silence wedged itself between us like a splinter we both refused to pull. Now, somehow, it felt like the most honest thing I owned. It was a small thing, helping him put together that new shelf. Just a Saturday afternoon errand. Jake had finally started organizing his apartment. New shelves, a borrowed vacuum, even a potted plant he named Gary that he claimed was impossible to kill. I brought my tools, the same red toolbox we'd once lugged across 3 dorm rooms, 2 apartments, and 1 failed attempt at a DIY deck. "I can't believe you still have this," he said, lifting the lid. "Of course I do. You gave it to me." He looked confused. No, I didn't. You left it at my place when you helped me move. I texted you about it. You said, keep it. I'll grab it next time. He blinked slowly. That was... Wow. I forgot about that. I didn't. We didn't talk much while we worked, but it wasn't the strained silence we'd grown used to. This one had rhythm. We passed screws back and forth, measured, drilled. I told him he was doing it backwards. He told me the instructions were clearly written by a sadist. It felt normal, good even. When we were done, he stood back and nodded. Looks decent. Yeah, I said, for a guy who thought Allen wrenches were medieval torture devices. He grinned. Progress. Later, as we sat with 2 cold beers and Gary the plant perched on the shelf like a small green witness, Jake said, I didn't just call you that night because I was drunk. I looked over. I mean, yeah, I was hammered, but I'd thought about calling you 100 times before that. Just never got past the part where I figured you'd ignore me. Or worse, pick up just to say you were done. I didn't speak. He went on. I'd messed up, not just with you, with a lot of people. But you were the one that stuck, the one I kept circling back to in my head. That doesn't mean you get a free pass. I know. I'm not asking for one. I wanted you to know that it mattered, that you matter. It's weird how long you can go without hearing those words, and how fast they hit when someone finally says them. I took a sip of my beer. Took you long enough. He chuckled. Yeah, I'm still catching up. We didn't label it that day, but that was the moment the shift solidified. No more tests, no more half-hearted efforts, just a quiet agreement between 2 guys who'd nearly let something good die, and decided not to. A few weeks later, Jake invited me to his sister's cookout. I hadn't seen his family in years. I told them you were coming, he said over the phone. Figured it was time. I hesitated. You sure? Yeah. I want them to see the people I didn't lose. That one sat with me. When I showed up, his mom hugged me like I was a ghost made real. Jake tossed me a beer from across the yard. Don't be weird, he called. I flipped him off, then laughed. Me? Never. We weren't back to where we started. And maybe that was the point. Because the truth is, sometimes, after a person disappears from your life, the version that returns isn't the same one that left. And that's okay. Sometimes they come back better, more honest, more bruised, more careful, more real. Months passed. We didn't talk every day, didn't need to, but the distance never widened again, not like before. When things got heavy, he reached out. When I hit a rough patch, he showed up with pizza and a 6-pack and a terrible movie, and every now and then, I'd catch sight of that old screwdriver. Still scratched, still dull, and I'd think about how close we came to never getting this back. How the only thing it took was one late-night call, one answered ring. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one.